Welcome to Madden 24 franchise mode, where this year I will be taking over the Las Vegas Raiders, who are in need of a lot of help. This first episode will be an introduction. We got a lot of things to cover about how this franchise will go down. I got training camp, we'll break down the roster, and I have plans to make this franchise mode different than other ones that you see on YouTube. The biggest thing that I am going to be doing this year is I have custom draft classes, but not just that, custom draft stories, profiles, weekly updates. Every episode there's going to be a big college football update. I really want to have a more immersive feel for this franchise and build up the stories of players that are not just on our team, but on other teams. So I have a full custom draft class that I made, and players that I made, stories that I've come up with, and every episode there will be a big draft update, including in this episode we will have the college football introduction at the end of this video. Another thing that I do to differentiate my franchises is a lot of people, you'll see they'll go a couple years in, and you really don't get to see all the players that they draft and everything, their careers really unfold. It kind of, they stop like when they're hitting their prime or whatever. I like to play half the games in the seasons. Play half, sim half, so that we get more done in every episode. We get through the seasons quicker. The roster is continuing to change, and a lot of things are going down. You get to see players' careers really develop. I didn't want to spend too much time talking about the structure of this franchise. I covered the important stuff, and a lot of it's just going to be, you'll see as I go, the things that I do to try to make this different, and I hope you appreciate the effort that gets put in, because there's a lot more than just booting up, playing the games and everything. There's graphics that I'm making, and there's all this other stuff, so I really hope you appreciate it. But now I want to talk about this Raiders roster and why they're the team that I picked. The Raiders are a team with the most undefined range of outcomes when it comes to how good they can end up in a couple of years. This Raiders team could really hold on to this hot high-end talent, grab a quarterback and really make a push forward with some good coaching and everything. And they can be a dangerous team, with guys like Davante Adams and Max Crosby and Josh Jacobs. But this is also a team where Josh Jacobs is contract expiring, and the running back market nowadays is really struggling, and it's going to be hard to come to a deal. Davante Adams is 30 plus years old, and who knows if he's going to want to stick around. And Jimmy Garoppolo is the team's quarterback right now. Obviously, Jimmy Garoppolo is not the future of this team, and unfortunately, we're going to be stuck with him for this next season, but we're going to be looking to move off of him as soon as we possibly can. Now, right now, you're getting to see some of the training camp highlights from Aiden O'Connell, the rookie quarterback. I guarantee we will see him. He is the backup quarterback along with Brian Hoyer. Brian Hoyer is really just there to hold the clipboard and teach Aiden O'Connell how to play the game. But with the way Jimmy Garoppolo gets hurt and how inconsistent he is, we will see some of Aiden O'Connell, so it won't be all just Jimmy Garoppolo. But regardless, I don't think either of those two guys are going to be the future of this team, so we're going to need to find a quarterback. You heard me mention Josh Jacobs, and Josh Jacobs is certified top 5 running back in the league, and Josh Jacobs is an incredible player. He will be the heart of this offense this season, but like I said, he's on an expiring contract, and the running back market is a struggle right now, and guys are just not getting paid, and it's just not smart to pay some of these running backs. Josh Jacobs is still young. I can see him being on this team. I would like to come to a contract extension with him. So it's really up in the air. If Josh Jacobs wants to stay, we can come onto an agreement and he can stay healthy. Ideally, he's healthy. We get him on a couple of years contract, but you know how this goes at running backs. Anything can happen. Beyond Josh Jacobs, we do have Zamir White on the bench as a second-year running back, and he's solid, and he'll get a decent bit of the carries this year. I would say 20-25% of the carries will be going to Zamir White this season at least, and we'll see if he can develop into a great backup running back and maybe even a great starting running back, and maybe we won't need to keep Josh Jacobs around because we feel so confident in Zamir White. Obviously, we want to keep Josh Jacobs, but we'll see how this season unfolds. Running back health fluctuates, and some teams want to go by committee. We haven't really figured out what this team's identity is really going to be quite yet. Beyond that, we have Amir Abdullah, who made the roster. Obviously, 30-plus-year-old Amir Abdullah, just a pass-catching running back. Not much else to speak of there. At wide receiver now, Davante Adams is once again another player, top 5 in his position. Absolute star player, and was really good in his first season in the Raiders. Derek Carr, obviously, it didn't work out with him, and the whole Raider experiment last year with McDaniels and Derek Carr and bringing in Chandler Jones and all of them, it was a failed experiment. But we have Davante Adams. We traded a first-round pick for him. We need to figure out what Davante Adams' future on this team will look like. I can see him getting traded early this season, or he's on this team to stay. It really depends on what Davante Adams wants, what he's looking like in our offense this year, because I don't think we're going to be a particularly great team this year. It's just a matter of how things pan out. We don't know. We could trade him now, and I still think we can get a first-round pick for him. If we hold on to him, his value is going to be going down more and more, so we can either sell early on him or just hold on to him and hope we can push to be a contending team pretty soon. Elsewhere in the receiving core, this team, I think, made the very questionable decision to bring in Jakobi Meyers as a slot receiver when they already had Hunter Renfrow. Now, in real life, Hunter Renfrow was getting shot for trade offers, and if you notice when I was scrolling through the roster, Hunter Renfrow was not there. That's because later in this episode, we do end up trading Hunter Renfrow because it's not going to make sense to keep two slot receivers. One of them would have to play outside, and they'd be ineffective. We just signed Jakobi Meyers on a contract, and it wouldn't make sense to trade him. He's in trade talks in real life, Hunter Renfrow, so it made the most sense to trade him while we can. And we made a free agent signing in relief of Hunter Renfrow. We picked up Sammy Watkins, who would be more of a fit to play on the outside. So out goes Hunter Renfrow. You'll see later where he goes to and what for. And in comes Sammy Watkins. Alongside, you see the rookie here, Trey Tucker, who is an absolute burner, and we'll see if Trey Tucker can get onto the field a little bit to really add an element of speed to the outside for this offense. Overall, the weapons are pretty solid, but it's an unproven group, because what can Jakobi Meyers do outside of New England? Because New England, a lot of system players. Can Sammy Watkins still be a viable receiver? Can Trey Tucker be a good deep threat? And will Davante Adams even be here to stay? We'll see. On defense, this is a one-man show. This is Max Crosby's team. If there's any player on this roster that is 100% certified guaranteed to stick around, it's Max Crosby. He is the heart of this defense. He is the leader of this defense. He is an incredible player. Finding an elite edge rusher is so hard, and he is just that. We already had him under contract. The Raiders paid him, which is great, so we won't have to worry about him. But elsewhere on this pass rush, it's a weak D-line. I mean, with Chandler Jones not panning out, this team had to go and select Tyree Wilson, and we'll see if Tyree Wilson could develop to create a nice dynamic duo with him and Max Crosby, but the interior of the line is poor. This is looking like just Max Crosby trying to fight for his life, just like he was last season for the Raiders. But we'll see if Tyree Wilson can maybe ease off some of the pressure, but this is a weak defense overall. The interior of the D-line is rough. Divine Diablo's our starting middle linebacker, which is not ideal. And in the secondary, this team did go out and pick up Marcus Peters, which is a helpful addition for this season. But obviously, Marcus Peters is not the long-term option and will probably not be on this team beyond this season, unless he has a real crazy year and gives us a reason to keep him. But it's a lot of just guys in the secondary. Our biggest piece, I think, is Nate Hobbs, who is a good nickel corner and will be a future piece of the secondary, we hope. But other than that, I mean, they signed a lot of guys like Duke Shelley, Brendan Faison, and they drafted Jacorian Bennett, who we hope can be the team's future-ish. It's a long shot, but we don't have much hope to really put into our cornerback unit. And at safety, Marcus Epps will be the free safety, and Morig will be the strong safety. It's a rough secondary and a rough defense overall, but we're going to try to make the most of it. One positive for this team as a whole, though, is the special teams, where we field arguably the greatest kicker-punter duo that the league has to offer. We have an all-pro caliber punter in AJ Cole and a great kicker in Daniel Carlson. So if there's a positive that this team has as a overall strength, it is our special teams unit. But obviously, having an all-pro punter and a Pro Bowl kicker is not going to help you entirely. You need a lot of other important positions. The fact that we are weak in the secondary, the fact that our pass rush, aside from Max Crosby, is weak. We have Jimmy Garoppolo at quarterback. It's a lot of key positions that are so unidentified for the team's future, and we need to really key in and understand that this team probably isn't going to contend anytime soon. I think that's a decision that has to be made, because while we have all these star players, we can't contend right now. This team is just not in a position in the AFC, which is already stacked, and in the AFC West, which they are the clear worst team in that division. The Broncos got a lot better in the offseason and actually got a person who could coach football. Obviously, Mahomes is going to be ridiculous to try to stop, and having to play him twice a year is rough, and playing Justin Herbert twice a year isn't that much better. So while everyone else is on the upswing and, you know, Mahomes and Herbert, we're stuck. And if this were a team in the NFC, it wouldn't be so bad. We would have a trajectory. I mean, I think if the Raiders were in the NFC, if they were in the NFC South right now, they could probably win the division. But not in the AFC. It's not going to cut it for the AFC, and this team needs a lot of work done because they are stuck in a position where they have a lot of old players that are on the decline, and they don't have a lot of young guys because the John Gruden era whiffed. You look at their first round picks that they've had. Henry Ruggs, we know what happened there. Damon Arnett, we know what happened there. Alex Leatherwood, one of the worst offensive linemen I have ever seen play the game of football. And Cleveland Farrell, a absolute swing and miss. So this team doesn't have a crazy amount of youth that has a chance to carry this team into the future. We have to start from scratch. And part of that is parting with the past. And one of those players is Hunter Renfrow. All of the moves and trades and stuff that I try to do, I'm going to try to keep very realistic. And I think that the Bills made the most sense. They are a team that has tried to fill this role a number of times. They have signed guys like Jamison Crowder. They had Isaiah McKenzie before that, Cole Beasley. They have wanted a guy in the slot to help work. And I think that he gives them that slot receiver that they've wanted. You know, you have Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis, and now Hunter Renfrow in the slot. I usually look at the offense. A guy I didn't speak about much was Michael Mayer, who this team is replacing Darren Waller with. Darren Waller was traded for a third-round pick. They go into the second round, take Michael Mayer. We're going to see if he can fill that void. And as you can see, Tyree Wilson will get the start early on. Chandler Jones is just kind of be a mentor, a rotational pass rusher, but it's gonna be a rough team, and we're just gonna hope we can make it through this season, be viable, show signs for the future, and lock up guys like Josh Jacobs and really figure out what the future of this team is going to look like. So that is the outlook of the team and why I was really interested in them, but for the rest of this episode, I will throw it to the college football update, the introduction to the college football season, where I will cover a couple of players, talk about the rankings, Heisman watch, all this other stuff. I want to get right into that right now. Welcome to the preseason college football update, where you can see the top 15 lined up right there. We're Ohio State topping the charts. We have the Heisman watch on the right side and the game of the week to watch out for. In week 1 of the college football season, we start with a top 25 matchup between number 6 TCU and number 24 Oregon. You see at the very top of the rankings, Ohio State, Michigan, Big Ten really running things right now. And Michigan and Ohio State obviously play each other every season. We'll see if they can hold their number 1 and number 2 rankings all the way from start to finish until their big game at the end of the season. From there, at number 3, we have Clemson and their resurging best defense in the country, arguably, and we will get into some of their defensive players throughout the season. As you can already see, one of them is in the Heisman watch. At number 4, we have Georgia, led by running back Dominique James, also in the Heisman watch. Alabama, obviously a mainstay of the top 10 in college football. TCU, the top Big 12 team, followed by UCLA, Texas, USC, led by sophomore wide receiver Raleigh Cordula. He is so good so early on, had 1,000 yards as a true freshman. Unfortunately for the college football fans, well, maybe fortunately for them, he will not be coming out this year. Raleigh Cordula is slated to be in next year's draft class, but even already as a sophomore in the Heisman running, despite having an awful quarterback situation at USC, he has put up numbers, and Raleigh Cordula is going to be one to watch for the next 2 seasons in college football. Then we have Washington at 10, North Carolina, Florida, Notre Dame, LSU, and Baylor. Now to circle back to UCLA, the first player I want to talk about is their quarterback, Heisman candidate, Byron Rohit. He is an absolute tank at the quarterback position and the consensus #1 QB heading into this draft. You will not be seeing any of the Madden scouting because I don't really feel like the Madden scouting is all that exciting to look at, so I made custom draft profiles for all the players that are a lot more exciting to look at, and I took a lot of inspiration from NFL Head Coach 09, if you remember that game, or if anyone has played it. It was a bit of a smaller game that EA has made, but I made the custom draft profiles to really resemble some of the scouting that they had, and I thought that it would be nice to have a bit more depth and a bit more to look at with these players rather than just A through F grades. So let's get back into it when we talk about UCLA quarterback Byron Rohit. He is a big boy at quarterback, 6'5", 233, slated to be a top 5 pick in this draft. Any team that is in need of a quarterback is going to be looking at this guy right here. And I have a impact grade for all the players that will be getting draft profiles. Impact grade is determining what they will do day one, the impact they will have early on. The potential grade is obviously how good they could be. So I think coming in, he is going to be a solid starting quarterback with the potential to be something special. And I have a very good comparison for him. It is Ben Roethlisberger, who was an absolute just tank in the pocket, so hard to bring down. He wouldn't run the ball all that much, but when he did, he was hard to tackle. He stood strong in the pocket. He lasered the ball in there. And Byron Rohit, if you want to talk about his positives, he has the big arm on the big body. He has a cannon. He will launch that ball 60 plus yards. He will fire it into those tight windows. But if you want to talk about the negatives, as a guy who has that kind of arm strength, sometimes they get a little over-reliant on that arm strength, and they get a little too aggressive. They get a little too fancy with it. They start thinking they can get away with throws they can't make. So if you can reel him back a little bit, you have something here. He won't move out of the pocket much. He won't really do anything with his legs. He will stand there. He will be hard to take down, and he will laser the ball in there. He was already a Heisman candidate as a sophomore, put up good numbers, and he is just everything you want in a top quarterback in a draft. He is just a great prospect, and any team in need of a quarterback, including our Las Vegas Raiders, are going to be looking at Rohit. Now I want to come back to the top team in the nation, and that is Ohio State, and they are led in the secondary by cornerback Amon Clay, who as of right now is slated to be a first-round selection. Now Amon Clay, as you can see by his potential grade, I don't think he's going to be hitting the highest of highs as a cornerback, but I do believe he's a very versatile, very speedy, very nice player to have on your defense. You could start him off in the slot if he needs to. He could play outside day one. He can even play up top as a center field roaming free safety. I compare him to D'Angelo Hall because if you remember guys like D'Angelo Hall or Charles Woodson, now I'm not going to say as far as Charles Woodson because I don't think he'll be that level of player, but a guy like D'Angelo Hall, who was a Pro Bowl cornerback once upon a time, he was able to play all over the field. He was able to be one of the fastest guys on the field, and late in his career, he was able to make the transition to safety. Now, with Amon Clay, do not expect him to tackle. He is a absolute liability as a tackler, which is why if you move him to safety, you will experience some struggles there, but maybe he will develop a bit more toughness and he'll bulk up, because he does need to bulk up and put on some muscle, as that is another weakness of his. He is a skinny, like lanky, even though 5'10", 186 doesn't sound too bad, he just has that build where he's very skinny. He's like a string bean. He just has that kind of build, but he has incredible ball skills. He is probably one of the best guys in the draft when it comes to having ball skills. He always gets a hand on the ball. He always is able to, make a big play in a big moment. He's good in zone coverage. That's a specialty. Man coverage, he can play man, but ideally you want him in zone coverage. You want him to just cover downfield. He really works in, off zone, cover deep. He won't get beat over the top at all. So I think there's a lot to like with Amon Clay, but there is some worries about him, and he won't fit every defense. He is definitely a player you have to put in the right position to succeed, but he has a lot of versatility, and I think a lot of potential to play in this league for a very long time, and why I think that if he has a nice senior season, he will be not just a first-round pick, but he might even sneak into around the top 10 area. I don't know for sure. It really depends on what he does as a senior, but look out for Amon Clay on the #1 team in the country. Now let's move on to the third and final player I want to take a deep dive into, and that is tight end Keegan Upton, who really could go anywhere in the first day or two. I don't think he will sneak into day one. I have him as a mid-day 2 guy. I think he's very much solidified as a second rounder, but he could fall to the third. He could jump up to the first round. He's a player that you either love or you don't really like a whole lot, as I compare him to Chris Cooley. If you remember him in Washington, he was drafted as a fullback. He was a very reliable but not overly spectacular tight end. But the things with Keegan Upton you gotta love are he is just an incredible run after catch guy. He catches that football, he runs with violence, he runs with strength, he stiff arms, he will run you over. Like, he is a old school tight end, and I have that down as a weakness. Now, me personally, I don't see being an old school tight end as a weakness, but a lot of teams will. Teams nowadays are looking for, your Kyle Pitts, even your Evan Ingrams, your guys who can line up on the outside or split from the tight end position as a big slot receiver. Guys like their versatility nowadays, and Keegan Upton won't bring that versatility, so I think inherently there is a bit of a ceiling when it comes to that, which is why he doesn't get anything higher than a B+ potential. But he gets a B impact grade because he can walk in day one and be a starting caliber tight end if needed. He is great when it comes to just being the safety blanket for a quarterback. He is your prototypical 2000s Y tight end who can come in, be reliable, can just be super physical. He's not a dynamic or an amazing blocker. He won't do anything flashy, but he will get down in there, has no problems blocking, even if he may not be the best at it. He had 7 touchdowns as a junior. We'll see what he does as a senior. Maybe see if he can help his draft stock shoot him into the first round, or maybe he falls. I think there's a lot of fluctuating outcomes, a range of outcomes that it comes with Keegan Upton's draft stock. But I really like Keegan Upton. He's just not for everybody. But a team is going to find him, a team is going to draft him, and a team is going to love him. And I think the fans are going to love him wherever he goes. But that will do it for the college football update, and every episode I will try to break down 2 to 3 players like I just did with their draft profiles, and I hope that you enjoyed that segment. That will hopefully be in every episode. I plan to have it. I already have all the graphics made for this first season, so every episode should have a draft update where I will go through the top 25, or I guess top 15 that I am showcasing, show who's moving up and down college national championship, the bowl games, the conference championships, Heisman, awards, results of games week to week. I try to really make this an immersive universe that not just exists, in the NFL or within our little bubble of being the Raiders, but really see what all is going out there in the football world, and try to give you something that you can really be invested in. So I hope you like the idea, and I hope you enjoy that part of the segment, and that will be in every episode. Overall, though, that will do it for the first episode. Week 1, we take on the Denver Broncos on the road, divisional matchup. That'll be next episode, where we will play the Broncos game, simulate week 2 against the Bills, and take a look at more of these college football players. And I hope you enjoyed this first episode. I hope you're looking forward to the series. I do plan to, now that I'm here at the start of the season, unlike last Madden, I really plan to go many years deep into this franchise. I hope you all enjoyed this first episode, though. Any feedback is much appreciated, and I will see you in the next one when we have our first game of the series.